Very interesting. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thrilled to have Jake Zachariah from Fetch with us today. Jake was introduced to us from Stephanie Anderson from Grace Hill, so small world coming together. Super excited to have this conversation today. Before we get going here, as everyone knows, Getting to Hell Yes, we're talking to sellers that sell in property management space. And one of the things that we're always looking to discover in these conversations is what are the strategies and tactics that sellers are using to have conversations with prospects that are seeking to solve a problem. The big difference that we're looking to kind of like uncover in these conversations is what is it, versus the kind of the old style of selling around persuading and talking about yourself, the show up and throw up kind of conversation, or alligator selling, we used to call it. Like, how do you talk about how do you be responsive to a problem that someone's trying to solve? But the tough part is, how do you find that person in that moment where they're trying to solve that problem, or at least create a scenario to help them come through that buyer's journey and meet them when they're ready to commit to change. So like always, Getting to Hell Yes is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is AI remote maintenance software for property management, solving trips and truck rolls and driving up CSAT and obviously retention. Appreciate for all the work and listeners we have for Iris on the show. So quickly talking to Jake and pass over to you. So like we always start this show, Jake, a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you end up in this role? It's always a great story to hear. And then ultimately, what's the problem that you solve and for who?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. I'm honored to be here and chat about this. My career in multifamily spans 20 years in sales and marketing, and started in leasing like a lot of people, and did really well in that for a few years. And I met this amazing woman, and she saw more potential in me than I saw in myself. And
Oh, wow.
She invited me to join IREM. And for the uninitiated, that's the Institute of Real Estate Management. It's my favorite association in the industry, and joined the Central Florida chapter. And much like a lot of what I do, I jumped right into the deep end, and I volunteered to do their marketing. They didn't have anyone that really was adept at it, and I that's a yes to every opportunity. And I used that as an opportunity because I was just a leasing consultant, and I really wanted to be the marketing guy. So I just kept telling that story, told it to everyone in every place. I went to all the meetings, and I told it until it started seeing me as the marketing guy, and they knew my story, and that started opening up doors for me, which ultimately led me to Fetch to help tell their story. So that's what I do now. Is I help companies tell the right story. I help them open up doors into customers' hearts and minds. So I think the way I believe it, or the way I think about it, is the best companies don't just have great products, they have a great story. And that story is something that their customers can see themselves in. And that's why I was drawn to Fetch. It has an irresistible story.
All right, now that's really leading the next question. So what's the problem that Fetch solves?
Well, multifamily managers are stuck in a cycle. They're stuck trying to manage package problems with decade-old solutions that just don't scale. So Fetch was the first company to ask, what if we just made that whole problem disappear? And that's that shift in thinking, that's the kind of story that sticks with the buyer. It helps them think about transformation instead of just like a slight improvement. And honestly, that's why I'm excited to tell Fetch's story, because multifamily properties were never meant to be package handlers. I was there. I was
for sure
20 years ago. We got 3 packages a week, maybe. And now properties are getting 40, 50 a day, and they spend hours trying to solve this problem sorting and logging packages, dealing with frustrated residents, carriers that don't care. I think they think multifamily thinks they have like a package problem, but I think what they really have is a time and efficiency problem.
Yep.
There's other solutions, obviously, to try and solve this. Lockers, package rooms, software, that kind of stuff. But they try to make managing packages easier. But Fetch does something that's completely different. We make the problem disappear instead.
Okay.
It's just much simpler than trying to figure out where you're gonna shove a locker bank or break down walls to open up a package room for something. We just make the problem disappear completely.
And so that problem presumably is borne by two people, but only one buys, right? It's borne by the PM on the site, and it's going to probably be the resident. Their shit goes missing. So but the resident doesn't directly pay for it. The person who's in decision-making authority is at what level? Are they asset? Are they regional? Are they PM? Where they sit?
Yeah, the our buyer 100% is on the multifamily manager side. They are, and it can be at any of those levels. We have property managers who realize that they have a problem. We've got regionals who see it as a much larger problem. You have director of operations that see it from portfolio wide, that they've got this issue that is not solving. The resident really is the one who not to place blame on them, but they cause the problem. The e-commerce really is just grown.
Right.
They order and they want stuff delivered to their apartment. And again, like I said, if I was there 20 years ago when it happened, a resident would say, "Hey, I'm not going to be home, and I know I'm getting something delivered today. Can I just have them drop it off at the office?" And that was fine then. It was 3 packages a week, maybe.
Yeah.
But now it's the expectation. It grew slowly into that expectation, and now residents demand it. They think, well, you're at the office, you're here home all day long. Just take my package for me. And so this is something that managers they were never prepared to do. Is manage packages for residents as an amenity, as a service. We did it as a courtesy 20 years ago.
Is it in any job description for property manager? You're going to spend 2 hours of your day managing packages?
Absolutely not. And it's even worse. That property managers are the one who bear the stress of this, but they're usually not the ones that are managing. That front line is usually that leasing consultant. I mean, think about that. We shovel so much onto them. They're not prepared for it. They have improper systems. The lockers will break down, or the package room gets disorganized. Somebody's got to deal with it. It's the newbie. It's the leasing consultant that goes and does that, or even just onboarded software that tracks deliveries. It's something that somebody has to manage, and it's usually that leasing consultant. The managers figuring out how to manage their staff to manage this problem, and regionals are looking at multiple layers of this with their entire portfolio. Director of operations, C-suite, at management teams, they're thinking about this, and it just exponentially increases. They're thinking wow, if I'm losing 20 hours a week of managing packages at this one property, add that and add that and add that, and scale up to my whole organization.
It doesn't drive revenue at all. That's
absolutely not.
A total zero, low risk, high expense function, managing packages.
Absolutely. Yeah. We, as managers on site, and I say we because I was one of them, we would bear the responsibility of this, and we get no benefit for it. You'd have all the responsibility, you have none of the leverage.
Right.
And I mean, even if you try to solve it with some one of the other solutions, the payback is minimal on it. Maybe you can pass through $2 or $3 or maybe $5. But you don't get any of the payback for it. It's nominal. It's not anything to a scale that would justify the amount of time that still requires to manage that.
How do you mean you can pass through the dollars?
So Because we look at it as like an amenity and as a
Yeah.
service, especially for Fetch in the way that we do. We take packages off-site, and that's kind of how we solve it.
Okay.
We take packages off-site, and we give the resident direct-to-door delivery, and we
Oh,
remove on-site teams from the equation completely.
so
So
is it
there's no
different mailing
managing. Say that again.
different mailing address?
Yeah, so the resident will get a different mailing address, and then everything gets redirected over to our offsite warehouse, and that's
Okay.
literally how we solve it. Is by just when we say we take it off of the manager's plate,
Right on
we
site.
we literally take it off. You don't even see packages anymore. I mean, we have near instant implementation. So like
That's
once we
outstanding.
launch,
Okay,
we're gone.
I got it. And so custodian, do you guys take custodianship of it? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so we own the address for that
Yeah.
warehouse. So all those packages come and get delivered to us. We accept those packages, and we figured out the logistics. And that's something that nobody else is willing to do. And even if they attempted it, it's such a huge mountain of challenge to overcome and figure out the logistics. We
Yeah.
did it. We've done it over the past 7 or 8 years, and we've gotten really good at the logistics of that last mile delivery. So we accept those packages. We send the delivery drivers out to the community in
Yeah.
blocks of time, and the resident can then schedule that directly with us. So they get a Fetch resident app, and
Yeah.
they can schedule their own delivery. They can have it sent instantly right away. So they get it, first thing, the first
Yeah.
possible window, or they can say, I want to hold this. Maybe it's a birthday gift, or maybe it's a Christmas gift, and you don't, or maybe you're on vacation and you just don't want piles of packages outside your door or
Sure.
at the office. So you can hold them and you can wait for a delivery window when you're going to be at home, and you can physically grab the package from a human being, and you're not wondering, did it make it into the locker? Did it make it to the office? Did they just leave it outside the door? I don't know. But you'll get in the resident app, the Fetch resident app, you'll get confirmation of when it's going to be delivered because you chose that window.
What I like about how you approach the conversation is that you take a look at package delivery and package management. The common construct is to have a package room or a spot where it lands on site, and you guys are actually taking it. You're backing up and saying, no, that's not the problem we need to solve. We need to solve the solution. That the problem that we're trying to solve here is a package being delivered on time. Where it sits in the intermediary time zone between it being delivered and the resident receiving it is something we can solve independent of like on-site infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. Okay. So then the next question we kind of always talk about is that, like, as you're getting into a series of prospects, how do you figure out which prospects are seeking change? Like, what's the tell?
I think it is like our ideal buyer is somebody who's stuck in an impossible situation. So we've done a
Yeah.
lot of research on
Everyone's
this.
ideal buyer.
Yeah, we've looked at this, and we've seen that there are a couple, and I think it's probably, if I were to put a pin on it, it would be mid-rise buildings and student housing properties.
Okay.
Infrastructurally, like to
Mhm.
put a very fine point on it, they just those mid-rise buildings and student housing properties just weren't built for today's package volume. I'd
Yep.
venture to say, no communities were really built for today's. You can go look
Yeah.
at statistics and see e-commerce just grows and grows and grows. I mean, it's just it just is. It never stops. E-commerce, it just keeps
Yeah.
growing. But these managers get hit particularly hard. They have no space for lockers or package rooms, and their
Mhm.
residents expect fast and effortless service. So it's even more important for them. I mean, think about it. Student housing gets slammed at the start of every semester. Anybody who's familiar with student housing,
Mhm.
but it's made even worse by e-commerce. Thousands of students and families are ordering furniture,
Yeah.
essentials, books, all that stuff. It all gets delivered in the same week everyone's moving in.
Yeah.
So like their offices turn into package warehouses literally overnight. We talked with one community in South Florida, and their peak was over 1,000 packages in one day, and that would literally take 2 people working a morning shift and 2 people working an afternoon shift for 4 days to dig them out of that, just to organize it and send notifications and everything. So, but mid-rise properties get hit just as hard. Think about it. You got Prime Day, Black Friday, TikTok shop, Instagram influencers, like it just doesn't stop. And package volume skyrockets, and their teams get buried too. So these properties, they don't need a better system. They need the problem to disappear. And that's when they call fetch, because we take it completely out of their hands. We take it off of their shoulders. They're not in the equation anymore. All they get to do is just sit back and relax, knowing that somebody else has taken all of that logistical burden, connected directly with the residents to do direct to door delivery, and just left them out of the problem altogether.
Well, and presumably, like often when we introduce technology or an off-site solution, I guess it is kind of an off-source solution. People get threatened that this is going to eliminate their job, but I don't think anybody wants this job.
We do. We love it. Yeah. That's the thing, is like, our founder was watching a property manager just overwhelmed, buried under packages. He watched one carrier come in and drop a whole bunch of packages to a manager, and then watched another carrier come right in after that. You can see it. The Amazon truck pulls up, the UPS truck pulls up. I was at a property here in Colorado a couple of weeks ago, and I saw exactly that. It was one pulled up, and then right after another. It was almost like they timed it, and it was the perfect picture of just seeing someone overwhelmed by a job that they don't even get paid to do,
right?
But must somehow figure out how to solve.
But they're accountable for it, right? Like, they're not responsible, but they're accountable for it. That's frustrating. Okay, and I love how you guys have already segmented it down to mid-rise and student. A lot of folks, like, there's different implications to the operations of a business depending on how many units are there, like depending on the density. And it's like, even us, like, it takes a little bit of, like, I don't like the fact that it doesn't feel comfortable to exclude a potential market, but ultimately, like if I say high rises, like high rises aren't a great solution, aren't a great target for us. And so I'm trying to really force myself to commit to a lower density conversation. And that includes the SFR and the BTR side of things, but it's like, it's still hard not to, because so many operators and managers manage all different types. And so it's hard for them to go out there and seek a solution that only benefits, or seek a solution, or I'll say a solution to a problem that is most intense for a specific sub asset class. But it's like, ultimately as sellers, we have to target one. Otherwise we get kind of tripped up in conversations that don't necessarily mean anything to anybody else.
Yeah. And that's also to say too, like, we'll welcome anybody who thinks they have a problem and they want us to help solve it. Right. Yeah. But when we really hone in and we have the most beneficial conversations, not just for us, but for the client as well. When we're telling the story, and we can see their eyes light up because they see themselves in the story. And then we can tell it in a different way that helps them understand that, they're not alone, that we can solve this for them. That's really, again, that kind of like mid-rise or student housing. But we have clients from high rises all the way on the high end to garden style communities. We're in 25 different markets nationwide. We have 39 different warehouses across the country. So, we'll service anybody in that serviceable area. But it's those that seem like that really have the problem. Like, as I said before, that student housing property in South Florida, 1,000 packages in one day. That's a problem. And there's no space for them. They had a package room. They were trying to solve it. They built around this solution around to solving it. And then when we stepped in to solve that for them, they could take those same people that used to manage packages, and now they go over to the university and they're doing their job, which is leasing and selling and advocating and brand building and giving awareness, and not stuck in a package room scanning package after package and associating with a resident to get it.
Well, and presumably a package room isn't it's not a cross dock. Like it's the lowest valued room in the facility. It's
Absolutely.
dark, dingy in the basement. It's like, there's no windows. I can just imagine it, right? Like, gray, aging shelving with stuff turned around all the wrong way. And again, it's not a
Yeah.
professional, it's not something that someone's looking to solve. Like, they're not trying to do it
Yeah.
better.
And when you completely outsource that solution to somebody who's prepared to handle an increasing and infinitely growing e-commerce problem, when you outsource that to Fetch, you can now reclaim that space. So whatever
Sure.
space you were using for the
Of
lockers
course.
or a package room, you could tear those walls down. You can turn it into something your residents actually will like, and will differentiate you in the market space from your competitors that are right across the street.
So when you think about, when you guys do your kind of like cost of inaction conversation, is it typically around like, you're paying for this real estate, you're paying for these people, you're paying for these hours? Is that how you guys present that kind of like current state cost?
Absolutely. We have an ROI calculator on our website that gives people a firsthand glance at how much time they could save. And
Yeah,
then it's also got this really cool pivot point where you can scale it lower or higher depending on what you think your actual problem is. We use the data that we have. We know, like, okay, if you're in suburban, if you're in an urban area, you're likely to get about this package volume.
yeah,
And then you can say, no, mine's like way worse. Like I said, that community down in South Florida, they would scale it up. They were spending more than 10 or 12 hours a day to solve that problem. So
well,
their savings would be a lot better. And then we also start talking about the ability to pass those fees through. So as you're paying for the service to solve your problem, your logistical nightmare inside the office, you can then also pivot that because you now are giving your residents direct to door delivery, something that they have come to expect from Amazon, Instacart.
yeah,
Heck, I just got groceries delivered this morning to my door. I didn't go out and buy them. That's just what we expect now. And so you're giving them that additional amenity, and you can pass through what you think that is valuable. And if that either covers it, or you can make a little bit of money on
yeah,
that from the value that you're passing on from that amenity. That's something that differentiates you. It's
for
it's
sure.
uh, not some passive service. It's an active service that we provide a lot of value, and our residents love it.
Because there's a moment they're blocked, right? Because they're not able to consume or appreciate the package they've just received. So they want to unblock that situation.
For sure. Yeah, yeah.
So then it feels like there's natural kind of like, as you mentioned, uh, time walls that emerge with respect to package volume. Like, there's a predictability around, hey, Labor Day is coming, school's starting, it's going to be insane, and it's really quiet here, first week of August. What are you going to do? And I'm just going by what you shared there. Are there other time walls that people have to act before they like
Absolutely.
take time? Like, I'm just guessing.
Absolutely. There's always a time wall, but I think it looks different for everyone. And for our clients, their time wall is when the problem can't be ignored anymore. It's when the
Sure.
obvious problem is put into a pressure cooker. So, I mean, you're thinking like holiday package surge, but then
Yeah.
add a budget reforecast into the mix, or you have student move-in week, but that just happens to intersect with like a refinancing project. That's never fun.
Right.
So like you have this problem is happening, and then you have this pressure cooking stressor of a due date that's added onto the the makes the pressure even higher. So suddenly the problem that you've been tolerating becomes something that you must act on. And I think that's the great thing about Fetch, is that we can help with both. We can fix
Yeah.
the chaos of the packages and the pressure of that due date, because we give them a way to defeat both problems with near instantaneous implementation. You let
And
us know you got a
yeah.
problem. It's 2 weeks, maybe 3 or 4 at the most, depending on scheduling, and we can be out there, transition your whole community off, and you'll never see a package again. And it gets the buyer back to running their property with clarity and control.
from an implementation perspective, we'll get to Jason's question in a second here. From an implementation perspective, like I understand how it's like, I get that, like we take it off site, that can happen instantly. There's a implementation element to it around getting all the residents to change all their ship tos. Does that, like, what's that feel like in between, like the time that they choose to kind of like day 0 and day whatever time, by the time everyone complies and changes all their ship tos? How does that happen?
Yeah, so that's probably the only ask that we have of the on-site team, and it's not very much different than what they're doing already. So
Sure.
it's a new amenity, and we're asking for the help to implement it, to roll it out, to sell it as a value proposition for the community, as a value proposition for the resident. We give them lots of onboarding material, and we, we'll think about, what would make the most and best impact at that community. And obviously we work with that manager to figure out, like, what do you think your residents love most? Like do they just love a flyer on the door? Do they want an email? Like we'll onboard them, we'll give them an account, and send them a bunch of emails that kind of so they can understand what the value is for them. Things like cold storage or refrigerated storage for their food service, HelloFresh meal kits and that kind of stuff. Or if you've got oversized package. I mean, I always lived on the 3rd floor. I never wanted neighbors above me. And but then I always had to call it, when I was sales, I always called it the heart healthy floor, because you had to go up 3 flights of stairs to get up there. But you got a dog and you got a 60-pound bag or a 60-pound bag of food, and you're like, I don't want to carry this all the way up from my car to the top. You order that on Chewy, and we're the ones will lug that up the 3 flights of stairs. And if you've got elderly demographic, or you've got anybody who with disability, we're so accessible because nobody has to leave their home. They just have to get to their front door and open it, and we will hand them the heavy stuff, the big stuff, any packages. They don't have to organize or work at any of that. We'll do the heavy lifting, literally. And all we ask of the on-site team is just help us sell that amenity. So as your residents turn over, we just got to let them know that is the kind of hurdle, that is the kind of the cost to get into some of these benefits, is you do have to change your address for delivery over to this Fetch warehouse. But once you have it locked into Amazon, I mean, you're good. You lock it into any of those websites that you purchase from. We ask people to just save it in their phone as a contact, and that way you can always just pop it up. You can always just have it autofill, as that's the shipping address for you. And then when we get the package, you get a notification in the Fetch app, and it makes it much easier. So again, that's all we ask of the on-site team, is just to help us sell it, and help us introduce it and onboard it. It could take as little as 30 days. You have some residents who are just chomping at the bit to get this solved. They also don't like waiting in line at the office or searching around a package room for their package. They want direct to door delivery. It's what they expect. And so a lot of times they're very excited, and they are early adopters, but sometimes it can take up to 60 or 90 days, depending upon, again, lots of that stuff. But we just work really, really close with that whole onboarding process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the on-site team has a stake in the success, because they don't want to be doing packages. So they're
absolutely,
support, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason's got a question here about the storage offering. What's up? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we just launched this yesterday. We've been piloting in a few communities, and it's going really well in some space-starved communities. And again, this is like the point, right? Like they don't have space for packages. They definitely don't have space for new amenities, and they're trying to stay competitive. And we took what we learned and all of our strengths from this last mile logistic delivery service, right? And we are pivoting, and we are turning into a company that just doesn't just handle packages and solve the package problem, but that we are bringing convenience to your resident's doorstep. And we introduced a new amenity, which is Fetch Storage. And that is no cost to property. So if you've got Fetch package already, you can add storage immediately. If you don't have Fetch package, guess what? It's buy one, get one free sale. You can get 2 amenities now for the price of one. And you can offer a direct payment to your resident for them to be able to enter into offsite storage. So we give them varying sizes of bins, depending on how much they want or need to store, and they put it in there, they securely lock it, and then they let us know when to pick it up. We come grab the bin, we take it, we put it in our secure warehouse, and
So, like,
they pay us a flat fee starting at $10.
Your Christmas tree stuff, get that out of the apartment, get that off the building. Yeah.
Well, and I live in Colorado, so the weather here, it wildly changes. So if you got all those coats, those puffy coats that take up so much space, that works great, and you're willing to fill your whole closet up with that in December, February, maybe even to like March and April. But then the sun comes out like today, and it's gonna be like 75 and beautiful in Colorado today. But then you start questioning, like, do I need all these jackets? And then it's like, where do I put them? You are literally in 4 white walls, and you've got limited space. So our residents love it, especially again, it's space starved communities. Student housing is a huge one for that one. They don't even have an apartment; they have a room. That's all they have is one closet or under their bed or whatever. And they don't usually have a car that can drive over to some storage unit, and they definitely don't have the money to spend on a full storage unit. So with our prices starting at $10 per bin, it makes it like a very simple choice for our resident. It's a huge value add for them because they get that option. It's not an amenity they have to interact with, but they do get to for the ones who need the space, they have the options. And again, we're still delivering packages there. We're to the community. So you'll see us one way or another. And hopefully if you need extra space, the residents will deliver packages and we'll pick your bin up for you and bring it back. And by the way, that delivery back and forth is free. So that's included. Like they pay $10 period flat. They don't pay for, back and forth delivery of that. They can do it as many times as they want, as many times they're comfortable.
So I'm curious as to, like, in the business of package management, where does a storyteller fit in that go to market?
So I think the problem is that a lot of people they have a frame of reference of how to solve package management.
Sure.
And that starts with these decades old solutions, which is lockers or package rooms or maybe even software. And so sometimes we'll get pushback, and they're like, "But I already have lockers," or they'll have tried to solve that problem. We even see it like on Google. They search for something that's the old way of doing things. They'll search for best package lockers for apartments,
right?
And that's one way of solving it, but it's not the best way. None of these options actually solve the problem. They just shift it around.
They're mopping the kitchen floor with dirty water.
Absolutely. So, and I witnessed this firsthand. I worked at a community in Jacksonville. It was over 1,000 units, and they only had 2-story buildings. So, massive footprint, big community, lots of buildings. And the owners ripped up a full fitness building and installed $100,000 of lockers. You're supposed to save over 30 hours a week managing packages, and they thought they solved the problem. And to their credit, like that was the solution that had momentum, right? So they thought they could solve it that way. The first day it opened, Amazon delivery driver came in, dropped 50 packages right on the center table, and walked out. Forced them to go back.
He's on the clock.
Yeah, he gets paid, just deliver those things and get back to the warehouse as quickly as possible, and that's how you get paid. So the on-site team still had to clean up that mess, and so I think that's I think where like those stories help our clients see that this is a mess that they've been dealing with. They're desperate to try and solve this. And I think that's where the telling a different story helps them see that it doesn't have to be this way, that it doesn't have to, they don't have to feel this way anymore, that they can feel empowered. They can see our stories that we've told and how we've helped other buyers like them in the same situation. And we can, help them see themselves in that story and tell it in a way that they feel that there's a way out, that there is a
Sure.
solution to this, and it's not just managing the package situation better. Look, like, lockers will fill up, package rooms will get disorganized, and even the best software still has teams physically managing packages.
Hmm.
But we these are all band-aids. They
Yeah, you
they
got to
might fix
frame.
Yeah, they might help the problem for a little bit, but they don't fix the root issue. And I think that's why we rely on storytelling to kind of like, again, help that client see that fetch is the only solution that actually removes the problem from the property. They don't
Hmm.
need space, they don't need software, and they certainly don't need to hire any extra staff. We handle the entire process offsite, and the resident gets direct to door delivery. Fetch isn't a better band-aid, it's a completely different approach.
Yeah, you're going right upstream, right? I've been fascinated with storytelling and storytelling constructs for. I think I did a first presentation on it. It's got to be like 2014, maybe 10 years ago. How did you get into storytelling? How did you get into the construct of storytelling?
Yeah, I realized that's what I had been doing the whole time, is
Yeah.
just like telling stories to connect with
Hmm.
people. I think that's the oldest form of marketing, really. We just
Yeah.
we tell stories to each other. That's why I mean, think about it. What's your favorite show on TV? What's your favorite movie?
Yeah. It's
Because of the
all
story.
yeah.
It impacts you, it connects you, it awakens something inside of you, like, I can do that, or I can be like that, or I can be better, or that's me. And we see ourselves in these stories, and I think that's what, that's what connected me to marketing. And
Hmm.
it wasn't just about kind of, a nice logo or the great
Yeah.
color palette or selecting the right font. I mean, those are all tactics and whatever. But when you boil marketing down and sales down to the base of it, if you can tell a story that your client can see themselves in, that drama, that that problem, they can see
Hmm.
it, they see it, and they see themselves as the hero of that story.
Yeah.
That's when you get it. And at Fetch, we like to think of ourselves as, that funny little wizard that you meet along the journey to slay the
Sure.
dragon. And we help you get there. We help you slay the dragon so you can go
Love it.
home and you can relax and get back to the thing that you love doing, which is building a community and making residents' lives better and happier.
When you get into story and you start like understanding kind of like legend, like traditional constructs, like the hero's journey, your prodigal son, the James Bond story arc, right? Like you start kind of paying attention to that. Like it's really like you can kind of forget about applying it occasionally. But like I even write emails in story format. Like
Mhm.
I and like my people will they will completely, they will put their hands up and agree. Like I am like always situation, complication, turning point, follow through, or resolution. Like the Pixar story structure or something we like lean on
Yeah.
heavy for every single conversation we have, right? Because if you can't articulate what the difficult part as sellers that I, or at least for me, is we like to try and introduce the complication into the setting. We like to kind of start talking about the pain in the first opening part of the conversation. But if you don't articulate the setting bias free, then you're not really getting buy-in to the conversation in terms of what we're trying to solve. Here is the setting. Setting can be a number of different things, but it might
Mhm.
necessarily not necessarily connect with what we're talking about. It's like when you and I were chatting about the MacGuffin, right? Like the MacGuffin is a construct in storytelling that is just the thing that needs to exist for the story to cling on to, but it's not the story, right? You look at, and those are kind of fun little things to kind of be aware of when you're talking and thinking about communicating with people, because often like it's just too easy to get caught up, talking about what the features and the flips, the switches, etc. Right? But it really is about people trying to solve problems.
100%. Yeah, and they don't. The buyers don't connect with a list of features anymore. That's not
No.
what moves them. That's not what connects them to that story. That's not what sticks with them. And I think that's again, that's why I love Fetch, because we're not trying to make the managing packages slightly better. We're not introducing a bank of lockers or a package room or software that makes it better. We asked, what if we just eliminate the problem? What if we just completely remove it? And that flips it. That's something the customer, the buyer, multifamily managers weren't expecting. And still to this day, when they get introduced to the concept, they're like, wait, I don't have to do anything? Like, other than sell it as an amenity, and show the value to your residents. But beyond that, no, there's no more managing packages. You don't got to worry about any of that stuff. And it changes the story completely, because they see a whole different world, and it changes what then they were expecting. And I think that's what that flips the switch for them. That's the contrast that highlights for them now, is that I was headed in this direction. I was thinking, oh, I got to make space for this or this. I got to train my team on something, lay it on me. What's the cost?
Like,
and we're like, none of that. None of that. We get to solve it for you, and you don't have to do anything. You get to go back to doing the thing it is that you love. And again, I remember that. I remember being at the beginning and only having a couple packages and being like, yeah, just have them drop it off here, whatever, 3 packages a week, no big deal. And nearing the end, I was working with these communities that were just, double digits, triple digits of getting deliveries every day. And you could just see them like, this isn't I'm not getting leasing commission from this,
Totally.
Totally. But they expect me to do it. So I got to do it. And so you're just thinking of like that incremental way to kind of like, I know I got to deal with it. I chatted with one of our salespeople, and she said that when she talks with regional managers, that's package problems are never a reason for them to turn down management, takeover of a new community. It's never a reason. They just accept it. And our message now is, it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
There's a different way, and it solves it forever, because even if you do put those lockers out there, you got to find another place in 3 or 4 years for the extra bank of lockers you're going to need, because e-commerce keeps going.
Yeah,
it keeps going up.
Yeah, there's no if your investment strategy includes a cap on what Amazon's going to sell your people, it's a bad strategy, because it's just going to sell more.
Yeah, I mean, and they're
more frequently, right? Like you're two deliveries a day, 3 deliveries a day.
Yep. And they've built their entire infrastructure around making sure that they can get you packages faster, because they are solving that for them. That's their barrier to making more revenue, is how long it takes to get from their warehouse to your doorstep. And that works great for everybody in a single family home, or a high rise where you've got a doorman or door person who's just there to manage that for you. But you've got these mid rises who aren't set up that way. They don't have the budget to have a concierge staff or student housing, and their parents are ordering everything under the sun for them. They've got mom or dad's credit card and swipe for whatever they want on TikTok Shop. And the person who bears the weight of all that is the property manager. And that's why we tell that story, to help them understand that there is a different way forward, that they can escape this hellish nightmare of package management.
So for those listening, like what's a good story feel like? So how do you tell a good story? Like, everyone, you say, okay, everyone's buying this, I want to do a story. But what's a story? It's not a meandering conversation, it's not a monologue. What's a story?
Yeah, we start with telling, well, we set the scene, explain kind of like what the setting is, talk about a community that. And here's one of the things too, is that we've identified our unique value propositions, and we've got a lot of stories in our pocket to kind of bring that story closer to the buyer and make sure that they see themselves in that. So we set it up. We kind of give them enough information about that story so they can see how similar that they are to that. Again, we want them to see that they are the hero in this journey, and
Mhm.
that we're there. And then we uncover the dragon on that journey
Mhm.
for that hero, and that is the data, dropping it down of all those problems of having to hire staff to manage it, or it was just about the point where they could manage it, and then Amazon introduces a second Prime Day
Yeah.
that year,
Yeah.
and they just cannot bear the pressure of this anymore, and then they are asking at their wits end, like, how do I do that? And we then tell them, we unveil the little wizard that's off the side of the pathway for them, is kind of handing them the tools of what it is. There could be a better way. You could do this all by yourself if you want to. You could try. A lot of people do.
Mhm.
They ignore it, and we tell them about the consequences of that. There is a path you can take. You can go down that way. You can try what other people have done. And I think that's why I love the quote from Sally Hogshead, where she says, "Different is better than better." And we don't solve it in a better way. We're not trying to tweak a broken system. Um, we are trying to give you a way out,
Yeah.
and we're giving you a path that may not have been very visible. It's definitely not the one that's the most traveled today,
Mhm.
but it is getting more traveled, and that path is just outsourcing the entire problem, offloading it, and giving your residents what they expect, which is going back to direct to door delivery.
Yeah.
It just doesn't mean anything for a resident to order something to get delivered to their door, and then they got to go outside and down to the locker or down to the package room just to get it, or they have to stand in line and wait behind three other residents because they had just got home from work,
Yeah.
all waiting for that leasing consultant to have a free moment to run in the back and grab their package for them.
To
So
stop away from that lease they're trying to close so they can get paid.
yeah, and so again, somebody who's just not interested in that, and they look at that person, they're like, "Oh, I know what you're here for. You're here for the package, and that's not commission for me. I want to go do the other thing." And that's just human nature. We understand that, but that if we can alleviate that problem, if we can tell the story in a way that helps the buyer see themselves through that vision, through that transformation, that's where we're going with it. Is we want to use those stories to help them see the dream of that transformation, not that there's just another attribute to a way to manage packages a little bit better. Get
Yeah.
out of the system altogether and go. It's that weird path that you just were like, I don't know if I should take this one. And yeah, that's where
Well,
we're
it's
at.
kinda like
We're over here on
it's
the
like
side.
here's the journey. Here's the beaten path, right? And you're like, "How about we just go this way?" Right?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah, solve it. You don't need to
Yeah.
do any of that stuff. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
to solve the problem. You don't have to go defeat package management. We have already done that. You just have to see yourself not managing packages ever again,
Ever
not
again.
managing them slightly better, just getting out of the game
I
altogether.
love it. Question came in, and deliveries, are they done in the evenings and when residents are home, or weekends, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have several windows that we have placed throughout the day,
Yeah.
and we have them throughout the week as well. So a resident can pick up whatever window best suits them. Some of them
Yeah.
say, I want it immediately. And that's why you pay Amazon, right?
Yeah.
The cool thing about it is that we actually don't delay the delivery anymore, even though you think like there's an extra step that has to happen here, right? We don't delay that anymore because Amazon, UPS, USPS, FedEx, all those carriers, they deliver to warehouses in bulk much earlier than they have individual
Sure.
drivers coming
Of
out to
course.
those locations,
Right.
because they're like, hey, I can, for lack of a better phrase, I can get rid of this. The last mile of this delivery, I can just put everything on a truck and send it to fetch.
Yep.
Why would, well, let's do that at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and
Yep.
send that over to Fetch first. And then we can sort it really quickly, get a driver. And then again, afternoons to evenings is what we've identified with our residents is the best window for them. And we give them several options they can choose. And again, they can hold it for, several days and weeks if they want to. If they're on vacation, there's just not a
Sure.
good time for them. If they work in the evening and they can't, they're never going to be home until Saturday. That's fine. We deliver on Saturday.
So then thank you for that. Thanks for that answer. And thanks, Michael, for the question. So when we get into like what you've told the story, they're like, okay, that sounds, interesting and scary at the same time, or maybe, I don't know. What kind of objections do you get?
So here's the thing about objections. Most of the objections that we hear, I don't think are really objections.
Mhm.
I look at them as signs that the buyer hasn't seen the full picture yet.
I
So
like that.
you'll see, there are common objections you'd expect. Like they already have lockers. We already tried to fix this thing. Well, first of all, if you're in a conversation with us and you already tried lockers, then probably because they're not working
They're
the
not
way you
working.
thought that they were, right? So we know that they take up space. We know that they fill up quickly, and they still require staff to manage it. So we tell that story. Again, very much like that story that I just told you about that community in Jacksonville. It's okay to have believed that that was going to solve the problem. That's what they sold you on. They said it will
Mhm.
solve the problem and solve it for forever. Sometimes you see the failings of that on the first day, like that property in Jacksonville. Sometimes it takes a couple of years to realize that, but
Yeah.
eventually, with e-commerce growing, it will. Another thing, especially in this economy, that they'll say is like, we don't have the budget. But that's where we get to enlighten them and tell them the surprising fact that Fetch is often cost neutral, sometimes even budget positive, because you can pass through fees for this premium resident amenity.
Mhm.
And that's even on top of the staff time savings. And then, you have the benefit of the resident satisfaction there. You're giving them something additional for that. But most of our clients, most of our customers do not bear the full weight of this amenity by themselves. Some do, and they see it as a complete benefit. They're like, just getting it out of our
Yeah.
operations is worth it for us. But others see the opportunity to increase the value of the property, and by having that fee pass through wherever they're able to, they'll pass that fee through as a premium amenity, and they make some dollars on the side. They alleviate
Yep.
that budget pressure. And then some residents will say, like, or some buyers will say, our residents don't like change. But honestly,
Mhm.
that's where we bring it back and say, I just got groceries delivered to my front door this morning. Everybody wants direct to door delivery.
Mhm.
What a resident doesn't want is to sit in a line or waiting in the leasing office, or to wade through package room trying to find their package somewhere, and God forbid it's missing. They don't want that. So we don't think of these objections as kind of like walls. We think of them as doors, and they just need the right story to open them. They need to see how
I love
somebody else has solved this problem. We don't just answer objections, we reframe the conversation. So we have got, like I said, we've collected that bountiful package of stories that we can just pull out from and say, here's the right story to connect the buyer with that dream of transformation.
Oh, that's outstanding. I'm just capturing notes here. That's outstanding. Often the reaction to an objection, sorry, when you get an objection, the first tend to react. I do love how you respond to your common objections with a narrative that is, compelling with a happy ending and all those things, because it's like, I'm going to take that away even myself, because that's very valuable to think about how we can be thoughtful. For starters, be thoughtful about the response to the objection,
Mm.
because we have common objections. And so even framing the objection in such a way that you enter into an engaging conversation about the objection, because often the objection is not actually what the objection is. It's something else veiled as an objection, as you mentioned, maybe not ready for whatever. But then digging into that a little bit further can reveal the problem that they're trying to solve. when it's presented in a way that's not combative. It's like it's an engage. It's I'm on the same side of the table as you, instead of like, here's my volley back to your objection.
Yeah.
That's super
Yeah, and
interesting. I'll
especially
check
if you
that.
look at them as opportunities. If you
Yeah,
don't look at it as it's not a pushback, it's a slowdown. It's a hold on. I don't have the full story yet. I'm not getting the full picture yet. And so that opens up an opportunity for us to again tell another story in a way that helps you see how you can transform this and how you can get out of this problem. You're the one that solves this. It's your decision. But here's a story of how somebody else used us as a tool to help
sure.
solve this problem completely. And then that's kind of like where we see those light bulbs start clicking instead of
Outstanding.
volleying back another, overcoming an objection.
A
No,
rebuttal.
yeah, we don't want a rebuttal. We want another opportunity to tell another story.
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, that might be the answer to the next question. What's the one piece of advice you'd give somebody who's seeking to kind of like start their career in this space and in this journey? What would you tell them?
Yeah. My piece of advice that I would give is if you're interacting with buyers on a regular basis, that's sales, marketing, whatever, any of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, don't listen for logic, listen for language. Because when a buyer is ready to say hell yes, you'll hear a shift in the way they talk about the problem. They stop saying things like, we're trying to manage this, and they start saying, we can't keep doing this. Or they'll say, there's got to be a better way. And that's your moment. And in sales and marketing, your job is not to push, it's to show the buyer the story they're already in and how you can help them see how they can win it. Because
Uh,
like my thought process is the best sellers aren't just good talkers, they're good listeners. Because when you catch that shift in the way the buyer's voice is when you're listening for it, the yes is already on the table. Your job now is to just help the buyer uncover that yes for themselves.
Outstanding. That is really, really outstanding. I'm sitting here writing notes in the middle of this thing, so I'll lose track of it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. How can we get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Yeah, best way to get a hold of me is you can find me on LinkedIn here. You just search Jake Zachariah, and now I realize that's a lot of letters. So there's a lot of opportunities to mess up here. So you can just use my name. I put it down here. Is JZ Jake Z, and you'll see my face pop up. And great thing is I'm always in the mood to meet new people. So I love a good conversation, whether it's about multifamily storytelling or just rethinking how we solve problems. So anybody listening, feel free to connect with me, send me a message, or just follow along.
Wonderful. That's outstanding. And then who should we talk to next?
Without a doubt, that is Jonna Smith at People Zest. She is one
John?
of the most
Jonah?
Jonna
Jonah?
Smith. Yeah,
That-
Jonna Smith at People Zest. She is one of the most experienced executive recruiters in multifamily. Certainly one of my favorites. She's helped me along the way, and what I love about her is she's different. She doesn't just fill roles as a recruiter, but she really truly matches companies with the right leaders. She digs through not just the job requirements, but the culture of the company and gets
Mhm.
a long-term fit. She's a really good long-term partner. But I love Jonna. I love all her content that she posts on LinkedIn. She's got incredible stories about just like one hire can shift everything. And because she works with so many companies, she sees these like patterns in like their culture and operational success that most people miss. I think she'd be great to have on and
Outstanding.
add to this conversation.
I'll reach out and kind of like and mention you gave it the intro.
Yeah.
This has been outstanding. I love the objections, managing objections with stories. It's so easy to respond with a rebuttal, to counter, but no, include them in a story that's their story. That's the takeaway for me. All right. Everyone listening to the podcast, thanks for following up. Thanks for closing out. Thanks, Jake, for coming on the show today. Such
Yeah,
great,
appreciate it.
energy and in the insights on how we kind of like bring along this change and unlock this change for people in our industry. If you're listening on the podcast or on Apple or on Spotify, please subscribe, like and comment. It's always helpful for everything. in terms of popularity and just ranking things. We all know how that works. Thanks for listening today. This will be on LinkedIn Live. The blog, the posts, and everything else will follow as normally does. Follow me, follow Jake, so for more of this kind of content on LinkedIn. And really appreciate everybody for listening today. Thanks, everyone. Take care. That was awesome, man.